What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the World Hard Enduro podcast. In this interview, we've got a guy from down under, Tim Coleman, joining us here on the show. He shares a little bit more about what it was like working with Hugh Jackman on the set of Wolverine. He also gives us some information on the current situation of the Australian hard enduro scene, as well as some information about his near-death experience with heat stroke in 2021. Enough said, let's get into it. Tim Coleman, welcome to the World Hard Enduro podcast, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Brandon. Thanks for having me on. I'm super stoked to be on this podcast. It's got quite a good reputation, so yeah, it's sick.
Cool, man. If you guys, or the guys that are tuning in and girls that are listening to this episode, if you don't know who Tim Coleman is, he's just an absolute wizard when it comes to riding a off-road motorcycle, picking lines, making riding an off-road motorcycle look so easy. And a lot of the times us just mere mortals are looking at him going, what on earth is going on? I know that you started riding motorcycles at the age of 4, racing motocross, and then transitioned to trials later on in life. What made you go from like the speedy side of motocross to the more slower, precise side of like the technical riding with trials riding? It's not usually a jump that most people make. They go from like fast to slow. What made you go towards that technical side?
Well, I think my dad loved motocross probably more than trials. Honestly, we have a trials event in our property at Glenmaggie. We've been holding that for like over 40 years. So I guess I have 2 older brothers and we grew up riding motocross. We have a big farm, so we had natural terrain motocross tracks, and that was just so much fun. So raced as a junior at motocross and transitioned into trials because of the event we have. And Mum used to worry a bit too much about the high risk of motocross. A few friends were getting injured. Trials was a bit more chill, suited my style actually. But I'm sort of glad I got into a bit of motocross because I still love ripping a grass track.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned your mum. I think that's just a natural thing for a mum to do, is to worry about their child when they're riding fast on a motorcycle. So yeah, cool that you kind of calmed her nerves down going into the trial side of things, going to the bit of the slower tech side. And I know also after racing trials, you moved on to, obviously now where you are like racing hard enduro or doing more trials like techniques on a bigger bike. Or what led you going down that path from moving from trials and then to the hard enduro stuff?
Well, I did trials for such a long time. A lot of competitions in Europe and in Australia. I sort of got to the point where I really wanted a new challenge. I found trials was great, but to practice with riders, there's not many in Australia to go practicing, whereas enduro, everybody's got an enduro bike to practice with. So the transition was quite easy, to be honest. And obviously following all the top riders in Europe, watching Erzberg as a kid, it was a bit more appealing.
Yeah, it's quite common to see that jump from trials to the hard enduro side of things. You see people like Graham Jarvis, Johnny Walker, even Alfredo Gomez. Most names are coming from that trials background, and just such a good foundation at the formative years of riding dirt bikes. The skill and the technique that is used is like so transferable in so many ways. And I think that for a guy that's been riding a bigger bike for a longer period of time and then tries to get onto a trials bike, it's such a foreign thing going from the big bike to a small bike, but going from the small bike to the big bike, it's a little bit more easy. Like, do you find it the same way?
It doesn't bother me now. I can jump on the trials bike and feel comfortable straight away, and jump on the enduro bike. I'm sort of debating, am I a trials rider or am I an enduro rider?
Yeah. And then I see that also on your social media, you dabbling a little bit with the adventure side of things as well. You're working with CF Moto, the 450. What's the deal with that at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm not a huge adventure bike rider, but obviously where I live, it's just like in the high country in Australia. It's just endless amount of riding for adventure side of things. So CF Moto, Sherco, the importer is called Mojo, and they bring in Sherco Australia and CF Moto and Suron. So it was pretty cool. They just hooked me up with a bike and said, let's see what you can do.
I think that's when some exciting things happen. We look in that space with Chris Birch, as well as some Kevin Gallis stuff recently on the T7, like the stuff that can get done on the bigger bikes that you guys can show and prove to us that's possible on these bigger bikes is insane, man. And I actually jumped on a 790 Adventure R not too long ago, and I was blown away with the off-road capabilities actually of those motorcycles. They really, like adventure bikes that are kind of more off-road specific, they really are super capable motorcycles, right?
For sure, they're super capable. Honestly, I don't really want to do any racing on one because I find them too big and heavy. I prefer a lighter bike. So, but it is cool to jump on and just have fun.
So you busy doing some stuff with some stunt work, right? Like I think that's part of what you do kind of with your brand and with who you are. You do a lot of stunt work around the world and inside Australia and stuff. And that stunt work led you to be kind of contracted with the movie Wolverine, which is pretty cool. Tell us more about how it was working with Hugh Jackman inside that movie and how it feels bringing off-road motorcycles to like a big screen to, you know?
Yeah, it was so sick. Obviously, trials, I went into the sort of more show, like tricks with the trials bike. Got a fair few cool gigs, and one of those gigs was, the Wolverine, the movie. Working with Hugh was pretty amazing. We worked in Sydney for about 4 weeks, to be honest. Working on a movie set is just something out of this world. Like the amount of money they spend to build a set, and it might be only a few minutes of film. It's crazy the amount of effort they go to, and it's such a surreal experience being on those movie sets. I want to do more, but they don't come by very easily.
Well, what exactly was your role? Were you like more of a stunt guy for Hugh, like playing his part, but as like on the motorcycle? I was looking for some more of the footage, but I didn't quite get into it. Do you mind just explaining a little bit more like what your role was in the scene?
Yeah, well, it was a couple of us. We were on trials bikes and we were ninjas. So we were dressed in full black stealthed out bikes. They ended up not putting all of it in the movie. So a lot of that work went to waste, but there's still bits in it. So yeah, it was pretty cool.
It's crazy the budget that they put into a film, as you said, like that, and then 30 seconds or a minute of it actually gets used inside the final feature. It's quite remarkable.
It's amazing what they do. And just the equipment, the camera equipment, it's just next level.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's good.
I think a lot of us dirt bike riders often watch older movies that have a motorcycle inside it and cringe at the idea of seeing a clear four-stroke, but then hearing a two-stroke sound, just like ripping it down a section, and you're just like, come on, you're spending so much money on it, and just get the sound right.
It's such a simple thing, and it makes a world of difference if you just get that sound right. So many movies are like that.
Yeah,
it does my head in.
Yeah, every time I think all of us dirt bike riders are thinking the exact same thing, like, oh, come on, like just lose all respect. And especially if the movie's like catered towards like a more motorcycle or off-road community, that's like the frame. I think there was one dirt bike movie, I think it's called the Motocross or something, with the two guys that were kind of like racing inside a series. They were cleaning pools and stuff, and there was a couple scenes in there that I was just like, oh, come on, get it right. you need to get the sound right.
I think like even like hearing an off-road bike with a Harley engine, it's just
yeah, exactly, man. But so you currently still racing some hard enduro races, or are you kind of not racing at the moment so much?
Not racing heaps at the moment. We have one major race in Australia called Wildwood Rock. That's probably the one I really try and do most years. I didn't compete in the whole series last year. Just sort of selecting my events these days, the ones I want to do. I don't want to get burnt out with it, but the series in Australia is like a little bit hit and miss right now. Currently, we don't have a series for this year, but there's a guy, Greg Peterson, who's working on a new insurance policy. So it hopefully should become a lot easier for promoters to run events in Australia, because it is quite strict with some of their rules here.
Yeah, we recently got a DM online from a guy that made a reel on Instagram trying to, you know, rally up some money and some donations towards this cause to create some, I'm not sure, like a motorcycle association or some sort to try to get insurance or cover this insurance situation. Do you know anything about like how that is going at the moment? And if so, like anyone that's listening at the moment that wants to try to contribute towards that, because yeah, we don't want hard enduro to die or anything to go wrong with it inside Australia. So where can people donate and how can they get involved in that?
Well, Greg Peterson is the man to talk to, and that's the hard enduro series in Australia. I don't know if he's got a GoFundMe page. I think he might have, just to get something up and running, because he's been working so hard to make it happen in Australia. Otherwise, we've got nothing, to be honest. So it's a big thing. So the community is really good towards helping events. They want to see it happen. There's so many junior riders keen, up and comings. There's some really quite talented kids coming up. So their parents want them racing. It's just, I don't know, something needs to happen.
Yeah. Last year at the Romaniacs, I did the bronze class, and there was a kid riding in there called Eli Cobb, and he was solid rider. His first 2 days was a bit slow, but the last 2 days was absolutely hooking it, and ended up fourth overall inside the bronze class. And I think this is just one example of, you know, the youth of Australia, the younger riders coming up and wanting to race some more hard enduro. So really hope that can get sorted out and that we can have more races in Australia, or a full series at least. The community is quite big, right? Like you get quite a big numbers at races.
Yeah, we get like a few hundred easily at some of these national and bigger events. And the hard enduro is, you know, it's getting more popular here in Australia. It's obviously not anywhere near Europe with the sort of terrain, with the altitude. We're a little bit limited in some sense. We have great riding in Australia, but I think, you know, riding in those European Alps and things, that's a whole new world. Yeah.
What was your favorite race overseas that you've done? I think you've done a few of the bigger ones. Which one was your favorite?
Well, I like Sea to Sky. That's always been my favorite because of the style of racing. You know, yeah, I think a lot of people probably would agree. It's fun, it's challenging, but also not. It's possible for a lot of riders. You know, I like the style that, you know, it's any rider can enter and they can just aim to get to the finish line. There's no class. Like a lot of riders don't know if they're a bronze, silver, or a gold, so they sort of stress themselves out not knowing what class to go in. But I think that point-to-point style, I know we have one in Australia, and it's a big hit. I think more of those style races, I think, are cool.
Last year, it seemed to be quite tough compared to previous years joining the FIM Hard Enduro series. It looked like the track was quite tech, only 16 finishers inside the gold class for that race. So, the guys were definitely sweating it out there. And with Graham Jarvis, I don't know what that guy's got going, but pulling a second in that race, it was pretty phenomenal. That guy just always seems to amaze me how, 49-year-old can just absolutely rip the way that he does. You have quite a bit of experience with Graham, right? Like he's been to Australia and stayed with you for quite a bit. And I've seen some videos of you guys like doing some wheelie practice and wheelie stuff together, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, like Graham's obviously a legend of the sport, the GOAT really. So he's always going to, get those results no matter what. You sort of can't count him out. He's just got that, watching his style is just so much body language when he uses his legs, when he rides. So he's quite gifted. But yeah, it was really good to ride with him here in Australia. He spent a bit of time at our house here in Glenmaggie, and, he's such a chill, down-to-earth guy. So we got on quite well, and it was just good fun to have a couple of yarns with him.
Yeah. Do you reckon his style is mostly made up because of his like stature, his body stature, or like, because I think like with a shorter rider, you need to put in bigger inputs into your body movement in order to get the bike to do what you want it to do. If you're a taller rider, I think you're pretty tall as well, right? So how tall are you now? Or
like just a bit over 6 foot, something like that.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so like my point is that like a taller rider has more leverage back and forth and like body movement over the motorcycle, where he maybe doesn't have that much leverage, so he uses a lot more exaggeration of his body to manipulate the motorcycle. Is there anything else that you notice from his riding style that's different, or for compared to yours or the other top riders?
I think like that's probably the biggest thing. Just his body, because I guess riding in England for so long, those slippery conditions in trials,
Yeah.
you can't be lazy on the bike, and that's
No.
probably the biggest thing is like using your legs,
Yeah.
being on the balls of his feet. But I was one thing I did take away that was his downhill capabilities. That was quite impressive. Being able to sort of know what's possible on his downhills. We hit some really big steps when he was down, and but his downhill stuff is quite impressive.
Yeah, so again, making Romaniac's the Carpathian Mountain downhills just a breeze, man. Getting through some of those sections. He's such a goat in that race. And I was speaking with Chris Birch a little bit actually, and he was telling me a little bit off topic, but with Stark Varg, with the electric bike and having a handbrake up at your handlebar. He was saying that like the downhill capabilities of that bike is just so crazy because you basically lock your feet in and you don't have to reach for the back brake at all with the right foot. So you can just lock your feet in and you got your back brake and front brake at the handlebar and you just descend. You can just literally go down pretty much anything like mountain bike style, right? Like a MTB.
Yeah, it would be actually pretty cool. I never really thought about it that way. And I guess those Starks probably have like engine braking options, I guess.
Yeah.
They're probably that clever.
Yeah, those bikes are good. The new EX model, I was like, wow, that seems pretty cool. But yeah. With Australia, so we're speaking a bit about the situation on Australia. What do you think the future would be for the racing of hard enduro in Australia? Let's say that all things considered, Greg Peterson gets the money and the donations he needs to set up this championship or set up the insurance. What do you think is next in order for it to grow?
Well, we don't have spectators in any of the events here. Well, not many spectators because it's a little bit restricted of what we can do with the spectators. Ideally, if we had spectators, we can advertise, that's the biggest thing. We can actually have like TV commercials or promote it a little bit better, get a nice atmosphere going. I think that's probably the first start. And probably a major sponsor on board. So some of these riders, I know some of these top hard enduro riders in Australia are putting so much effort in with not really much return with, say, prize money. I think that's a big one too. Like, being able to get a bit of prize money is like more incentive to train hard.
It seems like this is a talking point in all aspects of the sport. With hard enduro, we had Mario on as well, and he was also quite vocal about that point of the series and stuff. But it seems like the series is in such a unique situation. I'm trying to look at the positive side of it all, is that I feel like it's a good place to reset. It's a good place for the industry or the new sport of hard enduro to kind of reset itself and start kind of from ground up and learn from the mistakes they've made and being like, okay, cool, what do we need to do in the future in order to grow the sport and get more people involved, more money, more sponsors, get the riders paid, that type of thing. Before we continue with the rest of this episode, I would like to share with you some exciting news coming from World Hard Enduro. We are super enthusiastic about enduro and off-road motorcycles, and I'm pretty sure you guys are too if you're listening to our podcast. We are creating a newsletter that gives you all the nitbits and things that are happening in the industry when it comes to riders changing teams and new products coming out. If you want to find out more about that, you can find the link in the description. With all of that said and done, let's get back into the episode.
I know it is tricky, like even listening to like Jorge Prado, the MX world champion, he prize money in FIM as well. So it's going to be tough here in Australia, to be honest. Like, it's such a big country, we're so spread out. To run a national series, there's a lot of cost in traveling, 10, 20 hours to get to a race. So yeah, it's going to be tricky, but hopefully we can sort of put a good series together and start from there.
It's a big country. It's a big country to go from west to east. It's not
for
an easy
sure.
one.
You see like a map of Australia and all the European countries like jammed into it.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah, exactly. And what's the situation with Super Enduro? Because I found that, you know, with the Supercross, Australian Supercross series, they running events with inside a stadium. Like, I wonder if there's any way or any idea to explore that as a kind of an off-road or alternative to a hard enduro series.
yeah, for sure. That's been dabbled with a couple of times. Sam Priest, he actually was running a series, Australian Super Enduro or whatnot. Um, it's tricky to cover his costs for stadiums and things, but it unfortunately didn't really work out as planned. So I think another promoter might come along and try and push that. I can see that trying to be a good thing though. Like it might take off. I can, enclosed areas, people can come and watch. Because when we had it in Australia, it was really cool. Great atmosphere, spectators, freestyle motocross, proper
Yeah.
proper cool vibes.
Yeah, that sounds like a could be a way forward at least, just some way to try to get the off-road or, more technical side of the motorcycles or off-road motorcycles into, people's accessibility, so that they can come spectate, watch, and then also race, bring more money to the sport and more sponsors. But yeah, I wanted to touch on a base, and I know that this is quite a maybe not a hard topic for you to talk about, but a topic that definitely impacted your life. So we know that in 2021 you had quite a severe, I wouldn't call it an injury, but maybe a situation that you had inside. I think the race was called Tenterfield Terror, if I'm not mistaken, where you suffered severe heat stroke. Can you explain a little bit more about what happened actually on that day, and then also how the community rallied around, trying to fund the money to pay for hospital bills and whatnot going forward?
Yeah, well, first of all, like I just want to say the motorcycle community is just so good. It's like the best. Like everybody came together and it was amazing. It just shows you how cool this sport is and amazing these people are. So yeah, it was a pretty, I don't know how you describe it. It was just something I just don't like. I never forget. Every day I'm always reminded about what happened, I was, the doctors put it down to severe heat stroke. I honestly think there's probably more to it that they weren't too sure. So we're still, the doctors were having sleepless nights trying to figure out what the hell happened. And I don't remember the actual day where I collapsed, but I just obviously collapsed in the middle of a race. And just passed out and was unconscious and didn't wake up until it was like 2 weeks later in a hospital.
Man.
And I was so confused when I woke up. The lady's like, "You've been here for 2 weeks, you were in a induced coma." So like it was just odd, just very strange, but it was an experience that I just wanted to get better and better. I just remember some of those when I was in a coma. There's some of those dreams I had. I don't know if many people have been in that situation, but it's trippy. I was like fighting and honestly, it's like your body is telling you got to fight. You can't give up. Because honestly, I was on the verge. Like it was pretty hit and miss for a while. So and it's just really there's something else that There's a bit of fight in me, obviously. So, but
That's
yeah. It was hectic, but it took me a fair while to get back on my feet. Like I was in hospital for like 2 weeks. 2 months, and then it took me like a year to recover. But it was just the smallest things, like hopping out of the hospital bed for the first time was like honestly, the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I was in that much agony. I lost all my weight. I struggled to do anything. That tube down my throat was the worst feeling in the world. Like when they pulled it out, my lungs collapsed or something. So that was like the scariest moment because my brother was in that room and all the sirens went off and all these apparently nurses, doctors, everything came running in, chucked this tube back down my throat. So I was back on that bloody tube and all I wanted to do was just have a glass of water, It's just the simplest things.
the simple, yeah.
Holy moly.
Dude, that's crazy. I mean, just to hear, the situation. Like, if you don't mind me asking, like, in the race, was it like like, did you find yourself not drinking water or hydrating? Was it a hot day? Like, were there any like reasons that maybe on the day that you can maybe depict like why it actually happened? Or
Yeah, well, I was doing a little bit of coaching clinics because that's my main full-time thing is coaching riders, and I was doing a few clinics leading up to it. I I was probably not hydrated enough while I'm doing the clinics out in the sun, and maybe I was just focused more on helping riders and not myself, and that probably backfired. I I thought I can remember everything the day before, like I remember the meal I ate and everything like that. I don't remember that whole day, but the day before and everything was fine. Like I still got my memory, but I think it was that preparation. I was driving my van and the aircon shit itself while I was driving up, and it's in Queensland, so it's a long way. Oh, northern New South Wales, so it's a long way away. So maybe having the fumes in the van and all these little things might have just added up to a big storm. So it's
that's
just
crazy.
got to look after your body and stuff. And if you're not feeling quite right, just don't risk it.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. I'm glad to see that you are okay, fully recovered. I mean, do you have any like no long lasting issues from that situation?
Not really. I've got scarring on my lungs because of all the surgery stuff. So when I take deep breaths, I feel my lungs like wanting to just strangle me a little bit. And slight pins and needles in my feet now that I've got used to because like being in that hospital bed for so long, I must have done a little bit of nerve damage to my feet. So they're like so tingly, they're sensitive. But look,
Okay.
honestly, that stuff doesn't really affect me.
No.
So it's
Yeah.
cool.
In the bigger picture, I mean, dude, you're still riding a motorcycle and
Oh,
get to do
exactly.
what you want to do every day. That's super good to hear. And massive shout out to the dirt bike community for supporting, and Matthew Green as well for setting up the Go. I think he was the guy setting up the GoFundMe's and everything and kind of spreading the word. That's how I actually heard about it myself. So yeah, dude.
Everybody's legends. Like I remember the Matt Green when he was doing the donations, and there was other things going on even in South Africa. So that was really, really cool to see, and I appreciate everybody's support. So yeah, now obviously getting back to my feet, doing clinics again, and yeah, it's just love riding my bike still. It hasn't put me off riding. I feel like that wasn't a real injury. Obviously, it was near death experience, but I'm not going to blame that on riding motorbikes. That's for sure.
Yeah, it could have been in any situation that something
Exactly.
like that can happen. Yeah, it can happen to anyone. So yeah, dude, super glad to hear that you're good, as I said. And yeah, but moving on to the next thing that I wanted to talk about. So we were discussing a bit offline about bike development and some like carbon parts with inside motorcycles, and you shared with me that you developed with a friend of yours a carbon swing arm, which I was quite surprised on, and we got a little bit talking about how that feels on an off-road bike, and kind of the characteristics that a lighter swing arm can give you on the off-road side. Like, yeah, share with us like a little bit more about what you're doing on the carbon side with parts. Seems like you're quite deep in it.
Well, I just kind of like the development of bikes, trying to see how you can change them to, it's to suit your style. I think everybody's different, but I kind of like having a bike that I can throw around and push up a hill quite easy. So, yeah, this mob called Ford Dyno, I coach this guy. He's called Mr. Wong, and he owns this massive carbon fiber industry workshop, builds trains, airplanes and whatnot. Anyway, he's passionate about motorbikes, and he's like really just looking at the bike going, how can we make it better and perform how you'd like? And we tried the swing arm. They spent a fair bit of time working on this swing arm. I got a little bit of backlash from it because people don't, they're like, that's stupid. But honestly, I found it to be quite good in certain situations. I didn't run it for that long, and it still needed a lot of testing. Maybe we needed to work on like rebound with suspension or whatnot, but it was pretty cool. I could pick the rear end up around and bunny hop the bike quite easily, and I found it on hills, the rear end didn't want to slide down on certain things. I never really ran it in races, but it was a cool thing to develop. I've still got it there, but I'm running the OEM swing arms and stuff because I think just with Sherco, I've got to kind of like run, you know, the origi digi stuff. So yeah,
makes sense.
But
Yeah,
you know,
what parts are you looking at like next? So, you know, swing arm. I think also with people that may be getting a little bit of backlash, you know, like you never know if you're not going to try, right? And you could actually stumble on something that works so good, and all of a sudden it's like becomes mainstream, or hopefully not. Hopefully you can keep it for your own racing repertoire. But yeah, like I think it's really cool to try out new things for sure. What's next? You got a swing arm, or is there anything else you're working on?
well, I want to keep trying to develop some things. Like the swing arm is something I'm still not ruling out. I want to try and sort of get back to that and see what else we can do, like maybe titanium things or whatnot. I'd love to just have my own personal custom bike one day where it's just I can go all out and just see where you can get it. You know, I think that I know, like I was listening to Tomac podcast recently, and he was like, he was actually really wanting to be able to do more of that stuff in his 450 motocross bike. But obviously he's on a full factory bike. In Australia, we don't have the full factory stuff anyway. But I think developing cool parts would be really, really good. Like I know when Graham was over, he was so interested in learning about carbon fiber stuff. He was. We had dinner together with Mr. Wong, and they were talking. Graham was like, he was thinking what he could do. He was talking about a carbon fiber fuel tank. And just little things that he was trying to, I could see the interest in, you know, in his eyes that he wanted to try and develop things also.
Yeah, and if you think of it from his perspective, you know, he's been in the game from so long, like through all the iterations of a off-road bike. I mean, going from kind of motocross bikes kind of adapted to enduro, and then a more enduro-specific motorcycle. So he's probably seen so much and raced so much and tried so much. So putting something on a bike for him is probably one of the better things you can do if you want to feel or get a good comment on whether or not it's good or not on the feeling of a bike. I think he's quite a meticulous guy.
Oh, 100%. Like he's brought up with combustion bikes and everything. So I couldn't see him changing from a combustion bike to anything else. But I think just developing it to, you know, I know Graham's not, he's been to Australia and raced just on a standard stock bike. He won't even look at the clickers or anything. Like that just shows you. And a lot of riders probably I like that also, but realistically, if you've got the skills, you can jump on anything and ride.
Yeah, I'd love to see. I'm very interested inside the electric side of things, the e-mobility for off-road. Like, I definitely think that there's a place for it, but I'm quite eager to see how that place fits into, you know, the situation of combustion. Like, you're not going to stop two-stroke guys and off-road guys getting off, you know, the combustion side of things very easily. But I think there's space for electric, you know, like the way that I like to describe it for me personally is like if you go to a remote control airfield, you have remote control helicopters and remote control jets flying in the same airspace, but they play differently. You know, they play in a different class, they race in a different class and stuff. So I think that's kind of the way that to put them head to head is just, I don't see it so much personally, and it could be quite a controversial topic, you know, but that's just my personal opinion.
100%, and I think a lot of people would be in the same situation, like agree with you there. Like I know motocross riders that are 2 seconds quicker on a Stark Varg straight up from a 450 motocross bike. So obviously they're just a different category, you know. It's, you know, I remember actually watching the quarter pipe in X Games, and Colby Raha was like on the electric bike, and Hodges' dad was just like
giving him beef. I remember seeing that as well, actually. That was quite interesting, but he absolutely smashed it. Like the whips and the size of those quarter pipes, the height he was getting was just incredible. One more topic or one more story for that is I recently watched this South American race where Billy and Eddie Carlson went to. Eddie Carlson was racing the Stark Varg, and I found it very interesting to watch his technique and style because he was using the hand brake as well. The hand, so instead of the clutch, he's got the back brake in his hand. Super technical rider, super gifted. And just watching him, how he rides that bike and how he's switching between modes mid-race. So there was one gnarly hill climb and you could just see him inside his GoPro footage just changing to 60 horsepower and guys are just flopping all over and he just smashes it up the middle, gets all the way to the top, kind of overshoots it. And instead of having to turn the bike around, he hits a button on the handlebar, puts it in reverse, and then reverses the bike into a like ideal position, and then smashes the next section. And I thought, like, wow, that's pretty cool using reverse in hard enduro.
That is pretty cool, and it's pretty cool to see like that stuff. It opens up a whole new world. It's learning to ride a bike again, almost. You know, learning that rear brake as a clutch, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting one, eh? Because try and modulate power output or your delivery through the back brake. It's like, it's a little bit different. But yeah, I wanted to do also finally, just to kind of wrap up this podcast, is I want to know what's like the future for you. What do you got planned in the future? Anything exciting in the future for Tim Coleman?
I just want to keep developing, continuing my motorbike. I don't know what you say, like traveling. I want to do tours. I want to just be making videos all the time. I want to be, seen in different countries. I know I'm going to Thailand soon to do motorbike adventure tours, and I really want to step up my coaching and just keep pushing it and doing the odd race here and there. So I'm still motivated to ride a lot and get back into my trials shows as well. So I miss that entertainment side of things also, because I do like that, showcasing skills to the public. I like that, tricks and things. So, but yeah, the future should look good, and hopefully in Australia we can even make it that much better. So I want to be a part of helping it.
Yeah, cool, man. I'm excited to see what 2025 has in store for you. And yeah, it's really, really cool. Thank you so much for taking the time to come onto our podcast. And yeah, dude, thanks. Yeah, thanks once again.
No worries, Brandon. It's been a pleasure.